Growing up, video games quickly became my favorite hobby. No other activity seemed to engage my imagination or excite me in the way that video games have, or in the same way that video game worlds did. Even as I entered my adult life, I never really lost my passion for gaming. And it's because of that reason I'm so grateful that I have a hobby and a pastime that I still have a deep seated appreciation for. One that allows me to turn my brain off and just disappear into the escapism of the latest action adventure or the biggest fantasy epic. As I reflect back on my life as a gamer, I realize that not everyone has had the same positive experiences with video games that I have. Sometimes this is due to a lack of interest in gaming as a hobby, and the person that would have played games never really had an affinity for it in the first place, or it's simply because life just gets too busy and someone who would be playing video games wouldn't be able to as frequently as they would like to. But there's a phrase that's more common than any other one that people cite as the main cause of why they didn't engage with gaming as much as they'd like to later in life. I never learned how to play. And these days, with gaming more popular than ever as a pastime, I figured this would be a great time to help people learn. So, today, let's learn how to play video games. The first step in figuring out how to play video games is figuring out where to play. This is a choice that a lot of people who are looking to play video games for the first time get overwhelmed with because there are a lot of different platforms to choose from that offer different things for them. And every platform that's offered to people has pros and cons, and a lot of them are the same, but some of them vary between platforms. Consoles such as a PlayStation or an Xbox offer the most seamless experience for playing a game in the most no-nonsense way possible. You download games directly from the digital store, or you buy them in physical versions at participating retailers. You can't do much on these devices other than game. You can't modify your game files with any community-made content. In other words, what you see is what you get. All of these characteristics that I've listed also apply to the Nintendo Switch as well. The main differences between the non-Nintendo consoles and the Nintendo Switch are graphics and available game catalogs. And a PlayStation or an Xbox often offer more mature titles that adults are more likely to gravitate towards, such as a Call of Duty or Cyberpunk 2077. And then there's PC. A gaming PC is often considered to be the premier place to play most video games. It offers the best graphical fidelity and performance on average for most games. It offers the most player choice in terms of what platform you want to play your games on or buy your games from. And a lot of people seem to forget these days, it's also a PC. In other words, a computer. Playing games is just one of the many things you would be able to do on this machine. But on the flip side, PC also comes with its own share of problems. PC ports of games often experience more bugs than their console counterparts. PC gaming is also pretty expensive these days. Components for a gaming PC can often run into the several $1,000s if left unchecked. Then there are also rare outliers like the Steam Deck, but for beginners I would say you're better off getting one of the other options I've listed so far, as the Steam Deck's UI can sometimes be difficult to navigate for those new to the gaming space. As always, do your own research and find out which of these platforms best suit your needs and lifestyle. The next step in figuring out how to play video games is even more important than deciding where you want to play, and that is what game you actually want to play. This area seems to overwhelm people even more than the previous one because there is just simply so much choice. Rather than a handful of consoles to choose from, you are now choosing from a catalog of several thousand games. This often overwhelms people with too much choice, and it gives them a sense of analysis paralysis. The best way I've found to determine what game is right for you is to first determine your ability level. Most people that play video games for the first time in their life won't choose something like a Dark Souls game or Halo 3 on Legendary difficulty as their first choice. I think the best option would be to find a game that captures your interest while also being accessible within your skill level. Finding what interests you as a game is also the most important choice when finding a game to play. Playing video games is supposed to be fun after all, so you should pick something that speaks to you and stands out from the other games you see. Maybe you have a particular interest in first-person shooters. Or maybe you love a good story and you're likely to choose a mature action-adventure game with a compelling narrative. Or maybe you just want to manage your virtual self in your sim world. Whatever you decide, never be afraid to try new things. Some of the best gaming experiences come from the games you thought you'd be least likely to try. The next step in learning how to play video games is the one that people fail most often at, and they resign themselves and sort of give up and say video games are not for me, because they just get too frustrated, or they get a sense of hopelessness and that they'll never be able to learn. and that's learning how the game you're playing actually works. A lot of the time, people who are genuinely interested in video games as a hobby get discouraged when they don't understand how to play a game perfectly on the first try. But this is a reason to keep trying, not to give up altogether. After all, no one expects you to be a star athlete in the first football game you play or to nail a guitar solo the first moment you pick up a guitar. Like all things, skill and understanding of learning how to play video games takes time. My tips to you to learn how a specific game works would be to play the game's tutorial if it has one, and learn what systems make it tick. Play around with the physics of the game until you feel you understand them sufficiently. Also, remember that certain people will find specific tasks in video games more difficult than others. For example, most people who play video games, particularly first person shooters for the first time, find that the most difficult thing to learn function wise is to learn how to use two joysticks simultaneously, one to control movement and one to control where your character looks. And this is because there's inherent difficulty in trying to do two things at once, especially when you're trying to do both of them successfully. If you're struggling with this type of dual movement, try using a single stick in the beginning, just to gain a feel for how the controller works. Adjust the sensitivity of the controller to best fit your gaming experience. Also, if a game has an adjustable difficulty available in it, try adjusting the difficulty to make practicing movement in this game more manageable. The key thing to remember here is, above all else, practice, practice, and more practice. And just a word of caution, if you find yourself getting frustrated or fed up with a game, turn the game off, walk away, and take a break for a while. Game burnout is something that every gamer still struggles with, including myself. So it's important to give yourself meaningful rests in between game sessions, especially if you find yourself getting angry or tired. The last and perhaps most important thing to remember in how to play video games is have fun. Remember, the whole point of playing a video game is to enjoy yourself. To quote Reggie Fils-Aime, if it's not fun, why bother? Video games are a rich and thriving medium that have a community that is constantly growing every day. There's never been a better period for innovation and player choice and accessibility than we are in right now. Find the best game for you and make sure you enjoy what you play. Whether you're with friends, alone, exploring a dark dungeon, or managing an island of animals. Playing video games is one of the most fun hobbies you'll ever find. That's all for this video, guys. If you like what you saw, please consider subscribing on our channel or joining our members on Patreon. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye now.